Let's bring in the freshly minted Hall of Famer, winner of Pro Football Hall of Fame, Pete Rozelle Radio TV Award. He's Brent Musburger. Do you feel any different after this weekend?
It was such an honor, Dan, and I owe you so much appreciation because I wasn't even thinking about it until you and Jim Nance brought it up, and then Dick Vermeil kind of carried the ball from there, and so I owe so much to everybody. It was a it was a wonderful weekend, Dan. I have to say that I was shocked when Jane Kennedy was brought in to introduce me, okay, at the banquet that night. Completely unexpected. And of course, she, along with Phyllis George, worked on the NFL Today and Irv Cross and Jimmy the Greek. Jane's got a book out called Plain Jane, and she's a great story. I recommend that for her. But then I want to compliment the city of Canton, Ohio. This is their biggest weekend. People were so nice in the committee. And oh, by the way, I had at least two people mention Dan Patrick needs to bring his show into Canton for the Hall of Fame. Okay, they came right to me, and I said, "Listen, I'll mention this, Dan, because we had over 100 Hall of Famers show up. So yes, I so appreciate the honor, and so does the family. But I was a kid in a candy store when they started introducing all these guys that I had covered. Dan Faust did a fantastic job. They bring them out to a stage, and then they set a couple of rows on either side, and they bring out the new Hall of Famers. And, the four guys who were inducted this year had such great stories when they came out. I'll start with Sterling Sharpe. He was the only one of the four, by the way, who was a first round draft choice, okay, by the Green Bay Packers. And then it was so heartwarming when he and Shannon hugged each other up on the stage. Shannon presented him with the gold jacket. First brothers to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I couldn't resist. I got over to Sterling. I whispered in his ear, Eli Manning will never forgive you.
They beat Eli to the punch there of going into the Hall of
Yeah, they
Fame.
did.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, but I don't know why it took so long, and maybe you're not the right person to ask this, but you're in. You're a Hall of Famer, and
Right.
I'm very happy. And a lot of this, just like with John Facenda, he was the voice of the NFL, and I
Exactly.
just said, don't forget about who helped us get here to a multi-billion-dollar organization company, and I'm glad you got to experience that. I wish that Irv Cross had been around.
Oh,
Obviously
yeah.
Jimmy the Greek, people that you were with when you did the first pregame show. Do you have any idea if that was how successful that was going to be when you started?
Well, I like the idea that we were going live. Remember now, the pregame show on CBS prior to the NFL Today had been called Countdown to Kickoff. Pat Summerall and Jack Whitaker, they taped it on Friday night. Friday night, okay? And it was Bob Wessler's idea. Let's do this live, and then the half times and the post game. I felt sort of an immediate impact, especially when Mike Wallace strolled in about week number 4, and you guys are doing great, yeah. Because I always said coming up next is 60 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
What is your favorite moment, though, or story that, if all the
Well,
years?
you know, let me go to the night that Jimmy the Greek and I had our little fisticuffs in a New York saloon. Okay. And let me tell everybody, Jimmy objected to the fact that he thought I cut him short. Everybody's got to remember, we only had about 28 minutes of airtime. So I had to dish it out to everybody. Okay. So I was living in Los Angeles at the time. Actually, I was working with Connie Chung on the news in LA, and then I'd fly in for the NFL Today. So I got a call the morning after I returned to LA. We're going to fire the Greek. We're going to get rid of him. I said, hey, hold on. Let me get back to you a little bit. And I went back. I talked to my wife, Arlene. I said, Arlene, I don't want the Greek's blood on my hands because we had an incident. I mean, we're very close. We're like brothers. So I thought about, I called him back and I said, please don't fire the Greek. We'll find a way. Okay. So we knew Bob Arum, the boxing guy, really well. and he got us a bell and a couple pair of boxing gloves, and we opened up the next week and made light of it, and life went on from there. So it's the people, Dan. I just loved working with the people that we had. Phyllis left us for a while because she thought she was going to become an Oscar-winning movie star, and Jane Kennedy was brought in after that, and it was such a delight. Jane was loved by the players when she would go out for the interviews, and then Phyllis came back a little bit later. Things didn't quite work out in Hollywood, but it was the people that I dealt with that I loved.
Who got the better of the fight?
Well, the Greek hit me in the side. It wasn't a very tough blow. My brother might have got the best of it, but the smartest guy in the bar was the bartender, and he turned the lights off. Okay. And so nobody could see anybody. Okay. So it kind of calmed down. Okay. Now, but what happened was, I was at the table when the Greek came in, but sitting at the bar was a guy who worked on the city desk of the New York Post. And he ran back, and of course, bada bang, there's the picture of the Greek and Phyllis, and off we go. If he hadn't been in there having a cold one, okay, between shifts, I don't think anybody would have known about it, to tell you the truth. But yeah, it was on in an instant and over in an instant.
Well, I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. You helped put it in my head that I could do this, or they had jobs like this when I was growing up. But happy in any role that we possibly played, but that was more of just to remind people the greatness of Brent Musburger. So thank you. I hope it was everything that you hoped for this weekend.
It was. And Dan, thanks to you. Thank you so much.
That's the Hall of Famer, Brent Musburger, 2025 Pro Football Hall of Fame inductee.